G'day Plantifyers, Jess here, and today I have the results of my ginger growing experiment where I grew my ginger in 3 different locations to see which one would be the most successful. Location number 1 was in an old, unimproved clay garden bed out on my property that has been sitting there for years with no fertilizer and no improvement of the soil. Location number 2 was a grow bag with potting mix in it that I could water and move around. And number 3 was here in the bamboo house garden in one of my raised garden beds that I pamper. So I'm going to show you the results of this experiment and how much ginger I managed to grow from just 3 small pieces of it. So this was some ginger that I got at a local crop swap, and it was March, so kind of late summer. But I thought I would start this experiment anyway, even though it only had about 6 months to grow. So this bed is out in my property. You can see it's full of nut grass, it's awful soil, but I thought, what the heck, let's see. I do have like other gingers growing around in the property that are quite happy, so I thought it might happen, it might be okay. And so I got the first one of these and popped it in the soil here. I did nothing to the soil, I just dug it so that it was friable enough to actually plant the ginger in the soil, and then covered it back up again and labelled it so I knew where it was for harvesting. And just left it to its own devices. I didn't fertilise this or water it or do anything to it. I wanted to see how it would go just purely on its own. The second one was a grow bag, a small grow bag, which I decided to fill up with a mixture of compost and perlite. So we often kind of decant our compost into these old potting mix bags that we hold on to, so it's easy to like store and transport around the garden. So this is well aged compost from our own compost heap, and I didn't put any other soil in this. I just put the compost in here, making a little bit of a mess about it, but you know, we sorted it out in the end. It's the downside of grow bags, is they can be a little bit tricky to get stuff into in bulk. But here we go, we filled it up about halfway, and then I added some perlite to add a little bit more structure and drainage to it, doing this outside with a mask on, of course, to protect myself from all that dust. And then I mixed it through to ensure that it had good drainage and didn't just completely clump together when it got wet. And then I popped that near the house, and I planted another piece of ginger in there. Apologies if at any point in this video I've said garlic instead of ginger. For some reason in my brain I often say one and I mean the other, but we're obviously planting ginger here. So I popped the ginger in there, labelled it, and then I kind of kept this right near the house, made sure it was watered regularly, made sure it got a decent amount of sun, although, you know, not too much sun because ginger is technically a rainforest shade plant, so I didn't want to burn it too bad, but it did grow over winter as well. So in summer I probably would have put it in more shade. Here is the third location. This is one of the raised garden beds in my bamboo house garden, which has a fence around it to hopefully keep the brush turkeys out of it. So this soil I hadn't improved overly at this point, just it had the same improvement and fertilization that I was giving all of these raised beds. Although after I think a couple of months I did add a bit of a layer of compost onto this bed to help stuff grow. So that was part of the experiment, is adding that little bit of compost on the top of this. And I popped that bit of ginger in there and labelled it as well. And then I let them all go, and I watered them as I watered everything else. And then when I did any other sort of fertilizing, like weed tea or anything like that, I made sure I did the same to this garden bed and to the grow bag, but I didn't do anything to the ginger in the ground. It's now mid-August and it's time to harvest the ginger that has been growing for many, many, many months. Experiment number 1, I believe it's a failure because something seems to have dug up and ate or removed the ginger. So There's nothing there. If I can find some footage of what this looked like during the growing process, I'm pretty sure I filmed it a month or two ago. I will put that over the screen now. But basically, in this awful, unenriched soil, slightly elevated, very hard, it really did very poorly. There was very little growth. I think it had like one stalk grow out of it. And I think that's just a great example of when you plant stuff in the wrong soil, it's not going to do very well. Let's go look at experiment number 2. We will look at the grow bag. Alright, here we have the grow bag. As you can see, there's been a decent amount of growth. Awkward. There's been a decent amount of growth here. So let's dig this out and see how much ginger we actually got out of our grow bag. Stems just broke off. I think that's all we have. Haven't got any broken bits or anything. Alright, so still quite damp from being watered recently. Alright, here we go. Not bad, really. That's a decent decent growth, decent improvement on what was originally there, which was like this piece here, and then it's grown out to these new fresh bits of ginger. Nice. Not as much as I would have liked, but I only had about, I don't know, 25, no, not even, probably 20 centimeters of soil on the bottom of that grow bag. So we got a bit of growth out of it. Certainly much better than we got out of the awful, unimproved old garden bed. So let's go look at number 3, which is the raised garden bed in the bamboo house garden. So this one was growing in a proper raised bed in my tended garden with decent soil and fertilizing. Honestly, I didn't change much about the fertilizing regime of this versus the grow bag. Whenever I would give any food to this one here, I made sure to give some to the grow bag as well. This is definitely the one that had the most growth, so let's dig down and see what we actually got. Of course, I left my hori knife over there, so I'll be right back. Okay, now we have the technology. Let's dig this out and have a look. I'm trying not to damage this as I get down in here. I'm not sure how far it reaches. Oh no, I broke a bit off. Ah! Okay, there we go. We got this one big bit here and this extra bit that I accidentally broke off. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's a decent haul. Not as massive as some I've seen out there, but considering how much ginger we actually eat, which is not a huge amount, I'm happy with this, and I can save a bunch and freeze it and then replant some very shortly because it's basically spring again. So I think we can definitively say though that growing here in the raised garden bed definitely gave the best result out of the 3. Whether that was something to do with positioning, whether it was the soil, I'm thinking it's probably the soil and the amount of nutrients in the soil is what made the difference here. I mean, the one in the bad old garden bed definitely got less sun as well, but ginger is a plant that does like quite a lot of shade, whereas this one sort of got a decent amount of sun, and the one in the grow bag got a lot of sun. So I don't know how much impact that has had, but definitely the soil and the amount of nutrients in the soil in this raised garden bed had the biggest impact on the growth. Oh, and before I leave you, pro tip for storing your ginger is to freeze it. So there's a couple of ways you can do it, but the easiest way is just once it's been out of the ground for a little bit and cured off a little bit and cleaned off, break it apart into different clumps, sort of like a thumb-sized clump, and just freeze that lump of ginger. And then whenever you want to use it, you can just take it out and grate it from frozen. Very easy way to always have a bit of ginger on hand without it going funny. Or of course, if you live in a climate like mine, you can just plant it in your garden and break off bits as you need it. Thanks for hanging out with me in the garden. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.